flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call?
Councilmember Cooper.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Beaton.
Here.
Mayor Zelinski.
Here.
Councilmember Goodspeed.
Here.
Councilmember Szymanski.
Here.
Councilmember Grabowski.
Here.
Councilmember Pontiac.
Here.
City Manager.
Here.
City Attorney.
Here.
DPW Director.
Here.
Deputy Finance Director. Planning and Zoning Director. Public Safety Director. And City Engineer.
Thank you. Public hearings, we have none. Citizens' comments on agenda-related items. Do we have any citizens who'd like to comment on agenda-related items tonight? Seeing none, we'll move along to the consent agenda. Consent agenda. All items marked with an asterisk are on the consent agenda and considered by the city manager to be routine matters. Prior to approval of the consent agenda, any member of council may have an item from the consent agenda removed and taken up during the regular portion of the meeting. Consent agenda items include approval of minutes, cash balance, revenue and expenses, notification regarding next work session. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pontiac.
Yes.
Mayor Zelinski.
Yes.
Councilmember Grabowski.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Beaton.
Yes.
Councilmember Szymanski.
Yes.
Councilmember Cooper.
Yes.
Councilmember Goodspeed.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Unfinished business, we have none. New business. Consideration of a local revenue sharing board grant application. Local Revenue Sharing Board distributes 2% monies from the Little River Casino. The deadline for 2019 Cycle 2 application is Friday, September 6th. The Local Revenue Sharing Board, 2019 at 5 p.m. City staff has prepared 2 grant applications for submission to the Local Revenue Sharing Board. This agenda item will include 2 separate motions, one for each grant application. The first motion. At this time, council could take action to authorize the submission of a grant application for Local Revenue Sharing Board for the Police Department WatchGuard redactive software in the amount of $5,990. Do I have a motion?
I will make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, please take the roll.
Councilmember Cooper.
Yes.
Councilmember Goodspeed.
Yes.
Councilmember Pontiac.
Yes.
Mayor Zelinski.
Yes.
Councilmember Grabowski.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Beaton.
Yes.
Councilmember Szymanski.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. At this time, council could take action to authorize the submission of a grant application to the Local Revenue Sharing Board for the fire department thermal camera in the amount of $7,720. I have a motion.
I will also make that motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I've got a question. Can you describe exactly what that camera would be used for?
Well, we have one right now, and we utilize it at every single fire scene. We utilize it for our electrical investigations, we utilize it for overhaul. What I mean by that is we'll look for fire extension into walls. That'll save a lot on our manpower, man hours. We used to just tear down walls with bad spots. Search and rescue can also be used at accident scenes. One we have right now is very tired. The pixelization on it's very bad, and especially when you're in a firefighting environment and not able to see what you're trying to look at. Because of that, we need we need to upgrade to something new.
Are they sensitive enough to pick up body heat?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so
Point
if
zero.
somebody was in a smoke-filled room, you could pick them up?
0.01 degrees Celsius, and it's all the relative difference in the surface temperature. So when you have that body relative to everything else, you'll be able to see it, yes.
So like on search and rescue, do you know the distance?
The focal point on these cameras are infinity, but we're gonna be in situations where we're gonna be a lot closer.
Okay.
You can actually utilize these cameras from an elevated platform, from a helicopter and or a plane if you want.
Okay, so they'd be really good on search and rescue or search?
Oh, certainly, yes.
Thank you. Anything else? Seeing none, please take the roll.
Councilmember Szymanski.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Beaton.
Yes.
Councilmember Grabowski.
Yes.
Mayor Zelinski.
Yes.
Councilmember Pontiac.
Yes.
Councilmember Goodspeed. Councilmember Cooper.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Consideration of purchasing a 2021 tandem axle snowplow / haul truck. The motor pool schedule anticipates replacing truck number 133, a 1995 Ford L8000 in physical year 2020 through 2021. However, the frame has failed and the truck has been permanently taken out of service. Public Works is requesting to order a replacement truck at this time. The delivery of the truck will likely occur in the summer of 2020. The replacement truck has been priced through Michigan Deals vendors, cab and chassis through D&K Truck Company, and equipment through Truck and Trailer Specialties. At this time, council can take action to approve the purchase of a cab and chassis from D&K Truck Company in the amount of $115,646, and equipment from Truck and Trailer Specialties in the amount of $88,672. Do I have a motion?
Yes. I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes. I'm somewhat confused about the timeline, only because this is out of service now, and we're not gonna have, are we gonna be short a truck this winter?
Yes. So normally we put this in your annual budget. It's approved through the upcoming year's motor pool purchases. However, after the budget was approved for this current fiscal year, that truck was discovered that the frame was severely cracked. Once the frame is cracked on it, legally you can't drive that on the streets any longer, so we took it out of service. The lead time for manufacturing these trucks, both the cab and chassis and then to put the equipment on them, is so long that if I waited to the next fiscal year, we would have to go 2 winters without it. I'm asking for council to approve us to order this truck at this time, which then I will have to go this winter without one of the plow trucks. However, we expect that the cab and chassis would be delivered early summer, probably June, July next year, and would come very close to the next fiscal year. But we probably won't get the truck completed and delivered till the end of 2020, even if we ordered it now.
I'm just curious how you're gonna compensate for not having a truck for this winter.
We've got 3 different styles of trucks that we use. We have 2 Salters. Those are currently in good shape and functioning. We have 4 single axle plow trucks that plow the streets. And then we have 4 tandem trucks. The tandem trucks haul snow, and they also, now we're building them so that we can push back drifts and do the beaches along Cherries and areas like that. So this is a tandem axle truck that we'll be without, so it'll reduce our capabilities to haul snow this winter. And in the past, years ago, we used to contract the hauling of snow with local contractors. We've brought that back in-house now, and there may be some storms where, when we're hauling out of downtown, where we have to contract a tandem truck to help us out.
Is there such a thing as leasing one for the winter?
I'm not aware of that, but we certainly could look into that. I think we'll make do with just the 3. But it certainly won't be optimum. But yeah, we could look at either leasing or just contracting. What we've done in the past is when we've got a big event that even exceeds what our capabilities are, we'll call a local contractor, and we've probably had to do that maybe 4 or 5 times in the past 2-3 years.
Do you have a blanket purchase agreement with the contractor so that you already know up front what it'll cost to get somebody to come in and help you with those snow removals?
We've got there's set hourly rates that we're aware of, and we've established a good relationship, so whenever we've called, they've brought people to us.
I guess I'll direct this question to Mr. Taylor. Payment for this truck, do we have motor pool funds? Is it gonna work out to where we're not going to have to?
With that
take
timeline,
anything?
it will.
So we're not gonna have to take anything out of contingency to?
Not right now, we're not thinking that, because it won't come in until, as Jeff said, right about the time our new fiscal year starts. So we should be in good shape in terms of cash flow.
So what I hear you saying is, Mr. McCooley, is that we're ordering the truck because of the length of time it takes to get it. We're gonna order it in advance so we have it when we really need it. Pretty much.
Correct.
Well, but we really kinda need it for this winter too.
Yeah.
So
It just takes so long.
Band-Aid
We-
that together.
If you recall, we've got a truck on order right now that's a single axle. And if that single axle is here before the winter time, which fingers are crossed, I will not sell the one it's replacing and use that as an additional haul truck, or even just as a backup. We'll keep that through the winter just so we have a 10th truck. But also, we ordered that truck a little bit early, trying to get the timeframes to work out. So the way that and we've looked at the finances of this, the actual time where we have to cut checks for it doesn't inhibit the motor pool schedule, even though we're a year ahead of how we would have programmed it. The delivery of the truck will work out financially.
Anything else?
But do we have money for contracting outside help if we need it?
That doesn't come out of motor pool, that comes out of
No,
my
that-
operating budget.
Right.
And it's just something we'll have to deal with.
Jeff, how many more of these old trucks do we have? I mean, 'cause this is 95, I see.
That's the very oldest one, and each year when we put together our motor pool schedule, we look at certainly the age of the truck, the amount of engine hours that are on them, but we also look at the condition and the maintenance records. And we've got trucks that are requiring more maintenance on them than this one was. This one, even though it was our oldest, it's difficult to drive, but it was actually in good, sound condition. And so we just kept pushing it down the road, if you will. But once the frames crack on them like that, there's nothing really we can do. The last tandem that we replaced had the same condition. It was, I think, 2 years newer than this one. And we were able to get, I don't know, $4,000, $4,500 for it, because somebody was going to obviously use the engine transmission, and then they actually really wanted the box off of it. But the frames are,
Are we getting anything for this thing?
yeah, once it's replaced, we'll certainly auction it off.
Anything else?
Okay, well, I hope we don't get an uptick in calls from people who complain about the roads now.
Yeah, and this truck isn't on the mainline plow routes. It may slow down cleaning downtown a little bit. That's the biggest issue.
Okay.
Anything else? Please take the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Beaton.
Yes,
Councilmember Szymanski.
Yes.
Councilmember Cooper.
Yes.
Councilmember Goodspeed.
Yes.
Councilmember Pontiac.
yes.
Mayor Zelinski.
Yes.
Councilmember Grabowski.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Notice, communications, announcement. A regular part of each council meeting is a report from a cooperating agency. We're going to hear from Mr. Mark Fetter from the Manistee County Historical Museum, and we're going to hear from Rob Carlson from the Historic District Commission. Mr. Fetter.
Yep, and push down arrow.
Always happy to be here every year and talk about what we've been up to at the museum and all about Manistee's history. I'm actually I usually break this talk down into 3 parts. What we've been up to with the Historic District Commission, talking briefly about the North Pierhead Lighthouse, and then talking about the museum. I'm going to mention a couple things here for the Historic District Commission, but to kind of take the lion's share of that is going to be Kyle Story, who's the Planning and Zoning Administrator. He's going to go into a little bit more depth as to a couple of the projects that we've been working on with the Historic District Commission. But to kind of get started out very briefly, so with the Historic District Commission, what I usually do, or my involvement in it, is I'm considered staff as a part of it. And a part of that is when potential building owners or business owners or current building owners or business owners want to know more about the history of their building, they will come down and see me, and sometimes I spend a couple hours, sometimes I spend a couple days with people. People come in and say, I'm interested in buying this building. Do you have any information, photographs, tax records, newspaper articles? Who occupied that building? Who were they? What did they do? Where did they live? Where did they live? So on and so forth. And it just kind of goes on and on. And that's always a lot of fun to do. And I take a lot of pleasure in helping people out as best I can and telling them about the history of the building that they're interested in or the building that they're currently in. And that's just kind of a part of the duties that I do with the Historic District Commission. Sometimes, as I mentioned, it takes a short period of time. Other times it takes a very, very long period of time. To kind of go further into detail, once again, Kyle is going to talk about some of the things that I approved through the Historic District Commission and a couple of the projects that the museum was involved with as well. So I just wanted to quickly highlight that really quick before Kyle gets up and says a few words. I think back last spring or back last winter, Steve Harold, who's the former museum director, the current lighthouse coordinator, came to you to get your approval on applying for a grant for the lighthouse. And that was not, we ran into a couple problems with that. Mainly the grant that Steve was applying for kind of fell through due to the need of and the cost of flood insurance for the lighthouse. And so we weren't able to continue on with that. So Steve is later this fall, will be applying for a grant through the state's license plate program. And this is to continue to raise money for the renovation of the interior of the lighthouse. We currently have about $11,000 on hand, and we need about $145,000 altogether to make that project go. So hopefully, through various, this grant and possibly a couple other ones, we'll be able to have the lighthouse open to the public, or at least be able to peek inside of it and enjoy some interpretive signage. And of course, as we all know, it's kind of a big tourist attraction, so I think that would be a real positive for the community. So that's kind of where we currently are with the lighthouse, and we hope to continue on with that in the future. Before I launch into any specifics about the actual museum's operation, does anybody have any questions in regards to the lighthouse? Okay, moving forward. Since last August, since I've talked to you last, we've had approximately 200, well, we have, I made the count, 2,847 visitors, and that's pretty much average year for the museum. People far and wide, people from other countries, people, local people from different states, people just passing through, people coming to do genealogy and research. I've had about 122 people since last August come to do research on their families, on various properties. We have a lot of old tax information down at the museum, buildings, photographs, so on and so forth. These are kind of the things that people come and do when they want to do genealogy or research at the museum. Once again, sometimes it's a couple hours, sometimes it's a couple days, and I've had a person here this past summer that came almost every day for 2 weeks. So that's kind of, it's always fun to talk to those people and get to know them a little bit. As we all know, this year was Manistee sesquicentennial, and that's, I've never said the word sesquicentennial so much in my life as I did this year, but I've gotten pretty good at saying it. So that's the 150th anniversary of the City of Manistee's incorporation. We had an exhibit there, currently still going on, called Moments in Manistee's History, which is just a big photo exhibit, because how do you really encompass 150 years worth of history? And we decided to do that just primarily with photos. Since last August, I gave 11 lectures throughout the community. That ranges from, I went out, well, even out of the community, I went to Benzie. I did stuff for the county summit. The list goes on and on. It's always a lot of fun to put those together, and I really enjoy that. It's one of the aspects of the job that I really enjoy. I, of course, continue to write weekly historical articles and compile daily history column for the Manistee News Advocate. In terms of the weekly historical columns, this is something that Steve Harold, the former director, started in 1976. And coupled over all those years, Steve has written approximately 2,400 articles. And I've been with the museum 11 years, and I've written about 550 articles. And as you can imagine, that's a pretty exhaustive history of our community. And the neat thing is that that's only the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more to uncover, so much more to talk about, so much more to discuss. And that's just kind of one of the really fun things and really neat aspects that we do at the museum, is to get people involved in local history. And through the News Advocates articles, we continue to do that. I was also the facilitator for History Day for the Chamber Leadership Program. I went along with the Chamber Leadership Group as we went to several historical buildings. I talked about the architecture and a couple of people who were involved, and kind of tried to get them the group a little more interested in our community and our wonderful buildings here, and that's always really a fun time whenever we get to do that. Moving forward, of course, I know many of you were there. I assisted in getting the fire department building listed as the oldest continuously active fire station in the world. And this is a project that I've worked with former Planning and Zoning Administrator Denise Blakesley on, and then Fred LaPointe on, as he and I scoured the archives of the museum for photographs and records and so on and so forth. And that was really a fun project to do. I was also worked with the Lakeside Club and the Manistee County Visitors Bureau to design a new River Street sign that promoted our historic homes. And that's right there on River Street near Spruce Street. And that was also another really fun project to do. And I think so far it's worked, because I get more and more people asking about our historic homes. A couple people come in and want to know more about a specific one. And it's always interesting to see people excited about our local historic architecture. Of course, as I mentioned, this year was a sesquicentennial for the city of Manistee, and I was involved in putting together a series of events. A couple of you were there at the Fun with the Founding Fathers event that was held at the Elks. And one of the museum's goals was to try to work with and partner with local organizations and businesses, and we partnered with the Elks Club. I had several of the local organizations and service clubs there in attendance, and briefly spoke about their history, and they spoke about, the ones who were in attendance spoke about their history and what they do to the community, do for the community. I feel that a lot of these service clubs, of course, they don't have a lot of younger people involved, and they do a lot for this community, and I thought that they should be honored and celebrated, and that's what we tried to do there, as well as tell a little bit how the city began, and so that was a real fun night. I also gave a talk at the Vogue Theater talking about the history of our early motion picture houses, and I titled this Superman and the History of Manistee's Early Motion Picture Houses. I titled it Superman because we stayed for a 40th anniversary screening of Superman the movie after the presentation was done. And there were about roughly a dozen different early motion picture houses in Manistee, and that was really a fun one to put together and to present as well. I really had a good time doing that. I also gave a talk called Bricks, Mortar, Cornices, and Corbels, which was we met at the Ramsdale Inn, and we gave a brief little overview of the history of River Street, and then we held a walking tour up and along River Street that lasted roughly almost 2.5 hours. It was cold and rainy, but it wasn't the most enjoyable evening, but it was still, once again, a lot of fun, and to have people ask questions and be excited about all the neat buildings on River Street. We also did a walking tour of the Hill Homes Part 1, and this was hosted by our facilitator for that was local historian John Perchbacher, who is probably Manistee's foremost historian, and he gave us a 2.5-hour walking tour in and around the homes west of Oak Street. And a lot of people, we really had a great time. It was a beautiful day, and a lot of interest, and just a lot of fun to do, and John did a tremendous job. Steve Harold, former museum director, gave a talk on Manistee before Manistee, which was a talk about things that happened in Manistee before 1869, and he talked about various historical figures and events that happened. This photo is a photograph looking east off of First Street, and you see on the left-hand side the original Maple Street Bridge. This photograph was taken in 1868. Steve also gave a brief presentation outside the lighthouse. We just did a peek inside the lighthouse where people could take a look inside the first floor of the lighthouse. Of course, because the inside isn't renovated or fixed up, we could only go, we can't send anybody upstairs at all. So Steve gave a little talk and invited people to do that, take a peak inside during the Forest Festival, and we had a pretty good turnout for that as well. Just a couple weeks ago, I gave a talk called An Evening in the Park, and I had a talk at Reach Park that talked about the history of all of our city parks. And I delved into not really when they got a specific playground or a set of monkey bars. I was mainly focused on who these parks were named after and how they came to be and why they were named after them. And this is a park that's no longer there anymore. This is looking on the river. This park was called Ready Park because it was named after the Consumers Power mascot, Ready Kilowatt. And this was a park that was put together by Manistee's foremost Polish doctor. And he lived upstairs of where Consumers Power used to be. That's where Farm Bureau Insurance is today on River Street. And he kind of heeded the call for the city's beautification committee, and he decided to make his own park outside that's his apartment in his office upstairs. So that was a real neat one and real fun one to put together too as well. And then 2 weeks ago, I gave a talk called we did a trolley tour to Maxwell Town and beyond, a trolley tour in and around Maxwell Town. And this is a shot of Sibbin Street looking east. We had a really great turnout for it, and we were lucky enough to have former city fireman Tim Smith as our trolley driver and as our guide. And Tim is a local historian as well, and together he and I put together this route, and we had a really great time doing it. I still have 4 events to go for the rest of this year. On Wednesday, September 18th, 2019, I have a walking tour of the Hill Homes Part 2, and this will be facilitated by local historian Tina Croct, who will start on the corner of River and Maple and go all the way up to 6th and Maple, and then turn around and then go all the way back down where we started from. So it'll be primarily about the homes and the structures and the former structures that used to be dotted along and are currently dotted along Maple Street. So that should be a neat one as well. That starts at 2 p.m. Wednesday the 18th. On November 4th, I'm doing a talk at North Channel Brewing Company called How It Was Made, the Past and Present of Manistee's Industry and Manufacturing. And this will delve in not just to what our manufacturing is today, but also a lot of the smaller industries that used to be here, like our underwear factory and our garment factory and our violin factory and our tanning companies and our boat factories and all this other great stuff. So that'll be held at the North Channel Brewing Company Monday, November 4th. Then we don't have a specific date picked out, but late November is when I am currently working with the high school drama club to put on a play that we wrote called Vanderpool and Field Resuscitated. In 1869 was Manistee's most notorious unsolved murder, and so we'll be reenacting that at the high school in late November. We're all looking forward to putting that on, working together with the high school to do that. And then, of course, December this year, we're putting on a photo exhibit called Wintertime in the City, and that'll be kind of coincided with the Christmas season as well. In addition, Steve and I wrote a number of articles for the city's, for the Manistee News Advocate's Sesquicentennial Special Edition, and we put this together in conjunction with the News Advocate. That took a lot of effort, but I think it turned out relatively well. And then in addition, to help celebrate the sesquicentennial, the museum came up with the photos, came up with the copy for all of the banners that we have on River Street. We worked with the DDA to do this, and we had a great time doing that. A lot of work, but I've had a lot of people come in and want to know more about specific topics. And anytime you can engage with people in local history and educate them, I think is a real positive for our community. So with that said, are there any questions?
I think your venue for the November 4th, 2019 at the brewery is kind of interesting. Are you going to talk about any of
We're going to talk about the furniture factory and
how about the Daniels?
We plan to briefly talk on that because there's so much to talk about. So we hope to hit that one up. Probably won't go too far in depth, but
I just thought because they manufacture.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's
that would be.
That's one of them. Yeah, that's what we're going to talk about. And of course, with the furniture factory being there originally, and those being original to that particular industry, we're going to talk about that as well too. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just curious.
Yep.
Thought I'd throw it out there.
No, excellent. Yeah.
Was the Waterworks building open at all?
It was open most Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays from 1 to 4 this summer, and we did that July and August. Any other comments?
I just have one.
Sure.
I just want to I want to thank you for everything that you do, first of all.
Appreciate that, thank you.
And I've developed a new appreciation for the historical museum across the street from me.
Oh.
on Main Street. I filled in for my wife while she ran across the street to go to the bathroom. And watching the seniors come in with their grandchildren and great-grandchildren and talking about some of the old things that they used to have and use and was quite interesting and quite refreshing. It's kind of a walk down memory lane for a lot of those
Sure,
people. And
it
they're
certainly
sharing,
is.
they're
Yeah.
sharing that experience with the future generations.
I agree wholeheartedly, yeah.
And it was very interesting. So anyway, I've gained a new appreciation for it.
Good to
I
know.
would like
Thank
to
you for your-
personally see that it expand on that next year, and that we maybe do a better job of getting it open more often.
Hope to do that, hope to, anybody who has, would like to be down there on city council, you're more than welcome to volunteer. Councilman Szymański or Councilman Beaton or Goodspeed, whoever wants to be down there, I'll put you down there for a couple hours. We'll be open a couple more days. Sometimes it's difficult to get volunteers to commit to a specific time. And so that's why we ran into a little trouble with that over the last couple of years. So,
Once you put the open sign out and open the door and put the flag out,
yeah,
people start stopping.
They do.
It's very interesting. So anyway, that's my
I
comment.
appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Where was the underwear factory at?
The underwear factory is actually the Briney building today. The Briney building today often gets confused about it being the Briney Inn. It really was not the Briney Inn. It was actually built to look like the previous building that had been there, which was destroyed by fire. And so the Board of Commerce, along with the city, and the Cooper Underwear Factory out of Kenosha, Wisconsin.
It was gonna come out.
There you go. Decided to come together to construct that building. So it was originally made as an underwear factory.
And we made darn good underwear.
You made good underwear. Yeah, that's right.
That was before elastic, wasn't it?
If there are no further questions, comments, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot,
Thank you.
Mr. Schrader.
Thank you.
Next, Historical District Commission. Good evening.
Good evening. Hello. My name is Kyle Story. I have been in this role as the HTC staff person to the planning department for about 4 months now. My current role is a Manistee County planner as well as the City of Manistee zoning administrator. So with no further ado, I'd like to start the presentation of the Historic District Commission with the 2019 project synopsis. My previous educational background at Eastern Michigan had a robust historic preservation department, and being involved with this historic district is an absolute pleasure to preserve the historical character of this amazing Victorian port city. So the following slides go over the different projects I've been involved with over my 4-month span here, starting with the Ramsdale Theater. As we know, it's a pillar in the community. It's a staple of the different historical context this city has transformed to be currently. The sign that you see there is a modern twist of signage, if you will, with illuminated signage and transferring of messages at a rate to bring new economic and business development to that building. The Elks Lodge was a work in progress. This is a photo from today. They are now working with different contractors to replace windows to the historical context, as well as new paint and a new awning to bring it a little facelift, if you will, for the Elks Lodge, and it's going to be a beautiful facade eventually. Working with Jay Catlett and Company, a new barber shop in town, has been a pleasure to see the signage and awning come into fruition. A modern twist on a historical sign can be seen. A nice historic mustache, if you will, as a staple of the sign, and I think it turned out really well. The Sunrise Fabric building has beautiful new paint, as you can see with the different historical renditions of the different olives and maroons and vanilla, different cream paint. The Music Vault's new sign can be seen from a long distance away, and we did our best to preserve the historical context, and this is a new sign seen in the Historic District today. Backstage Hobbies and Games is a new wall sign, as can be seen there, and it's a little bit more modern than some of the other signs, though it's a project that's been worked on this year in the HDC. The new signage at Taco Bout It kind of plays off the different paint colors of the building. It's a nice red and black and white, bringing a nice contrast with the facade of the building. Manistee Beverage Company has a great wall sign there, as well as a marquee-esque looking sign above. This has a nice historical context, and it brings a new feel to that corner, and inviting folks in to enjoy different types of beverages. A future project of HDC can be seen there with the renovation of the Glicks building being brought to the forefront in the years to come. Working on different facade projects and paint colors will be a staple of this project, and it'll be a pleasure to see the transformation into a great new viable large-scale project in the HDC. So the HDC is comprised of 5-person board currently, including Chairman Lee Trucks, Bill Connor, Aaron Bennett, Dick Albee, and a new member, Ron Helmbolt. We've been working together to protect the character of the historic district and to continue the great history here. There is a webinar coming up on September 12th as well as the 19th, put on by the Michigan Historic Preservation Network to discuss different HDC roles and responsibilities, which will be a great webinar for everyone to learn and discuss their roles on. So that's a current overview of the 2019 projects I've been working on. If anyone has any questions, I would love to do my best to answer them.
I was wondering, is anybody doing anything about 347, 349, and 411 River Street? They're owned by the same person. Nothing's ever going on in there.
The permit has been a final extension date, and the 347 and 349 will expire at the end of this month. 411, I think it's November, but I'm not positive about that.
They haven't done anything in there, have they?
I'm not sure about the inside, though the outside still remains the same.
Follow up on that. So what happens after the expiration of their permit?
That's a great question. I understand that it'll go through the blight process, and I'm not exactly positive as to what will happen, though when that does expire, they will be forced to either make the changes or I'm not positive, to be honest with you. That permit will probably expire, though I'm talking to the right avenues as to what the next order of operations will be necessary for the HDC to make those changes.
Then the second one, the Glicks building, do we have a timeline? Do we get kind of a rough idea of when we can expect things to start happening there, and when the final date is?
There's no final date or timeline that I've come across my desk. I know that it's a work in progress, and I haven't seen any plans or any applications towards it regarding HGC or planning currently. Thank you for your time. It's a pleasure to be involved with the HGC.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Citizens' comments. This is an opportunity for citizens to comment on municipal services, activities, or areas of city involvement. Citizens in attendance shall be recognized by the mayor for comments limited to 5 minutes. Letters submitted to council will not be publicly read. Do we have anybody that have any concerns or comments tonight? Seeing none? Officials and staff. Mr. Taylor.
Nothing at this time.
Mr. Saylor.
Nothing, Your Honor, thank you.
Nothing, Your Honor.
Okay, well, I don't want to miss anybody here. Finance.
No, thank you.
Public safety. I was going to go to Jeff first, but you stood up, so.
Just wanted to give you an update on our firefighter applicant process. Last Friday was the last date for that. We have close to 20 applications. Letters are being sent out. We've only had a couple that we've had to turn away that didn't fulfill, A, B, and C on that. I think it's the 13th, September, we'll be doing our in-house physical agility testing, and we'll be doing our interviews after that. So that's one of the two things. Number two, I don't think too often we give too much credit to a lot of the young men and women that work here in the city. I'd like to personally thank Mickey, who every day has been down there at that beach cleaning that. He comes in, stops to us, gives us insight of what issues are occurring and some of the things he's having to deal with that are not the best. He does those on a daily and weekly basis. I'd just like to give him some props and some thanks for the work he does under the tutelage of Jeff. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McCullough,
I have nothing, Your Honor.
City Engineer. Yes, I would like to hear a little, just a brief update on, there's an SSO going on today?
Possibly, we gotta run the numbers, it was real close, the water came up high enough to go over the weir, and so I have to look at the data to confirm that it actually occurred, but if it did, it's gonna be a relatively small one.
Okay.
Just real quick, RD Phase 1, which is the lining project and the storm sewer project on the north side of the city, it's all ready to bid. We're going through an arduous process with rural development where we need to basically certify all our right-of-ways throughout the entire city, even areas we're not working. So George is working as best he can with RD to get that resolved. As soon as that's resolved, we're gonna be bidding that project, hopefully here in the next couple of weeks. Rural Development Phase 2, which you approved for us to submit the application, I think it was a couple of weeks ago. We've gone through several items with RD, and that is officially submitted. And we'll be talking with some of the leadership at Rural Development soon, just to learn details and process, because that's a larger loan. It'll go to federal review, and we're probably looking at 2020, to hear back from them. So, but it's in, and it's a key step. We got through the environmental process, which was pretty intense.
We're on schedule then.
We're on schedule to get these out to bid. Completion of construction, I think, will be tough to meet that deadline of this next October. I think we can do it with Phase 1. Phase 2, it's gonna be pretty tricky. That's a very large project to get done in the course of one season. So we've been talking with the DEQ about it. They're well aware of where we're at and how we're gonna approach, the bidding of the project. We're looking at doing 2 bids, 2 alternates. We would bid a project that'd be done in October and one that might be done the following year to see what that does to costs. So.
Thank you. DDA, do you have anything you'd like to say?
I'm excited to do my semi-annual report on September 15th.
Okay, thank you.
Jeff, did we do some paving on Washington Street?
Did you have something you wanted to say?
With the planning, I'd like to, I forgot to mention in my speech that learning and working from Mark has been an absolute pleasure, as well as we look forward to future partnerships with the DDA. And a planning and zoning update regarding the marijuana permits and different site plans that are coming before you shortly. This Thursday, there are 10 special use permit applications that will either be granted or denied based upon many different stipulations we've gone over through the Planning Commission. There are maps that showcase the whole district and the transformation that has been proposed via PDF and different site plans that include different colors and renditions of what the different parcels will look like. So I'd love to share those with the City Council in due time, and this Thursday we'll know more about the special use permit process. So.
Okay. Mr. McCullough was gonna get up. Thought he was gonna skate.
Can you restate your question, please?
Did we do some paving on Washington Street?
Do some paving?
Yeah, somebody left some messages for me, of why is the city paving on Washington Street? And I was looking at our schedule and I didn't see anything on for Washington Street to do any kind of.
We have in our transportation improvement program, we've anticipated some paving to occur on Washington Street. And we talked about this during the budget session, but just to refresh council's memory, the Department of Transportation is planning on doing some very large capital improvements to the Memorial Bridge, the US 31 bridge, I believe in 2023. So we have put them on notice that if they are gonna close that bridge and have to detour traffic for an extended length, that Memorial Drive is part of that detour route and needs to be reconstructed. Washington Street is part of that detour route and needs to be, it does not need to be reconstructed because it's it's got good base underneath it, but it needs the pavement removed and replaced. And we reserve the right to evaluate the condition of First Street and the small stretch of Maple Street. That is also part of that detour route. If they're gonna do a detour for multiple months, the streets, except for Memorial Drive, could probably handle that, but by the time all that traffic leaves that, it will leave us with very, very deteriorated streets. So we've had several conversations with the state, and I've put that in writing to them, anticipating that they would agree to pay for those paving upgrades. We have also scheduled capital improvement money to upgrade the water main along Washington Street, and then also applied for a grant to do some capital improvements on Maple Street Bridge, so that while Washington Street was closed down in preparation for the 31 detour, we would prepare or do some repairs to Maple Street at the same time.
Are we gonna get to any of the little projects on the Fifth Avenue or where you got projects there?
What was that?
In the paper, you had all kinds of different projects, Seventh Height, and you got Hughes and Blitzer and.
Yeah, those are all part of the rural development phase 1 project that Sean was mentioning. So as soon as we get clearance from rural development on the right-of-way certifications, we'll be able to bid that out. And we anticipate that construction will be next spring. In addition to those projects, we also have the Hastings and Third Avenue that is being designed and will be bid at the same time.
I saw that. No, Thad, how are we coming with that ad hoc committee with the Blake?
We have citizens that have stepped forward from the first 5 districts, and so we don't have anybody from the 6th and 7th. And Heather and I talked about it, that we're gonna let it go for a little bit longer. If we can't get anybody from 6 and 7, then we have others that have come forward, and we're just keeping them in line. We might just pull a couple of those off that and then move forward with it. But we're gonna give sufficient time for candidates in the 6th and 7th district to come forward. Just today, Heather did an interview with a radio station out of Ludington, specifically talking about the needs for the Blake Committee, but in general about the various vacancies we have on our boards and commissions. So, yeah, I was really excited that we got 5 positions filled really quickly. A couple of them just came, one came shortly after we put it on the website, and then we got one off the Facebook. So people are looking at Facebook and website for us.
Did you put my name on?
Yep.
Okay. The check.
Okay, I think he's on there, isn't he?
I'm not sure if he is or not.
We'll see.
I told you right from the night.
Well, I know, but we'll talk about that offline.
Okay. Are we gonna answer this lady on there was flooding in your basement, 88 years old lady?
Referring to a letter that was in our packet.
Packet.
Oh,
Holly Chapman.
Anything we need to respond to her about?
Jeff and I will talk about that.
Mr. Smansky.
I just wanted to publicly thank Jeff and the chief for the support that they provided for the Labor Fest event that we had on over the last Labor Day weekend. I thought that law enforcement did a great job, and again, the city workers did superb, not only helping to get things set up for it, but like was already mentioned, cleaning the beaches and making Manistee really shine over the weekend. And I heard from a couple of people that this has been one of the biggest crowds that we've had on the Labor Day in Manistee. So just wanted to add my thanks to the good work on the city's side.
Mr. Cooper.
Nothing, Your Honor.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I have 3. For our next work session, I would like to see another item added to it. I would like a discussion on how the city is going to award the permits for the marijuana district, it's something we need to understand a little more thoroughly. And also, I would like to bring up the fact that we haven't seen the final TIF plan from the DDA, and I don't know why we have to wait any longer. Why can't we be allowed to see it so that City Council has a chance to digest it and start discussing it?
It's my understanding that the DDA committee sent, is that right? They kicked it back to staff? Jeff could probably give it a little bit better update because he's representing the city.
The current draft of the plan was submitted to the city. City staff reviewed, marked that up, and then I think 2 weeks ago, we met jointly and went through those markups and comments. And then we're actually working on a draft operating agreement that'll mesh well with that. So I think there's been very good substantial progress.
So we should see it when? Give us a ballpark date.
I got red the first time he asked me to speak, so. We actually met again. We were changing the timeline, and that was the biggest thing. But other than that, all the other comments that had recommended were relatively small. We were able to sit down and work them out. The biggest thing after that was the original numbers we were given included the original tax base and not the TIF numbers. So we just met on Wednesday, Thursday of last week and reprioritized our numbers and our projects. So we won't have as many projects as we were originally planning because we don't have the funding that we originally thought we were gonna have. And we're hoping to have that finalized here in the next week and have that back to you.
Okay. Well, I'm just hoping that once it's finalized, could you circulate it? Can you send it to all of the council members?
Well, yes, we certainly can. There's just nothing finalized. You know, we've gone through several iterations. As Jeff said, Ed put together a draft for an agreement for the maintenance and different things like that. So there's some moving parts. It's not that it's sitting idle somewheres. Both sides are working on different aspects of it.
And for my final comment that I want to make, it seemed like we had a short summer with bad weather in the beginning, and all of a sudden September 1st came and then it's cold. I just want to make a comment. I know how hard everybody works, especially the city staff, especially the DPW department, to keep everything up and running. It seems like we've had some problems keeping the vendor at Fifth Avenue Beach House has not been open as much as people would like. So I'm trying to, be nice here, but I think that operating the two locations was probably hard on this vendor, and we may have to look at how we do that differently.
We've had multiple conversations with the operator, and the explanation that we've received multiple times is turnover in staff early in the season, mid-season, but my intention is to rebid that this year.
Can we have a food truck down there once in a while?
They are not allowed within 700 feet of the concessions.
Well,
unless
if the
concession-
concessions, say the concessions were gonna not be open for one day a week or a specific time, couldn't we have a food truck down there?
They're contracted to be open and to keep the facilities. The biggest issue for me is when they're not open consistently, like they're supposed to be, then the public doesn't rely on them, and when they don't rely on them, when they are open, they don't get the customers. If you go down there one day and they're not open, the next time you go down there, you're bringing your own stuff because you can't rely on them, and that kills their business. So hasn't become a good amenity for the public.
No, it hasn't.
The other responsibility that they have is to keep the facility clean, including the bathrooms. When they're not open, they're not keeping the bathrooms clean, they're not keeping the toilet paper stocked and the soap, and I get a lot of complaints on that.
Right.
The
I
third,
feel your pain on
and
that.
the third thing is, they pay us rent, and it's a small amount of money, and it's really third tier to me, other, you know, beyond the other two things, and they've been late on their payments, so, I intend to rebid that out.
Okay, okay, thanks. But again, I know how hard you guys work, so I don't want to take away from that.
And it's hard because
It's tough when people are talking about it. And
well, and we contract those concessions out, and when they're good, they are happy with the concessionaire. When they're not good, they blame the city for it. But we reach out every time I'm aware that they're not open or that there's an issue, we reach out, and it's been a challenge there.
Are they closing pretty soon, Jeff?
They're required to stay open through Labor Day. They have the option of staying open longer, but we noticed that they've already started throwing a lot of the stuff away at Fifth Avenue. So I'm guessing that shut down.
The First Street was already out of almost everything when I went down there.
Yeah.
well, thank you, Jim.
Yep.
Anything else, Mayor Pro Tem?
That's it.
Mr. Goodspeed?
I, as we know, not running, so I need to make it public. I guess I gotta resign, so I got a letter written, I have to read. As Mayor Roger Zelinski, member of City Council, to whom this may concern, I, Robert Chip Goodspeed, would like to resign from the 911 Board Authority effective today, September 3rd, 2019. I've made the decision not to run for the City Council this fall and will not be eligible for this position. I gotta do it just for formalities. That's all I got.
Well, first of all,
Thank you for serving.
thank you for serving, and we do appreciate all the time that you spent working with the 911 board. Very much appreciated.
I won't be able to call
Will
you.
we have that on the next council meeting, a reappointment?
We will.
Thank you.
I was out there today, too.
What?
I went out to the meeting today.
Okay.
So he's got cards here.
Is there anything else anybody would like to add? Oh, we got some cards to pass out. Well,
Okay, we got 2 cards for Heather Pefley. Wow,
She's
very important.
very special.
Okay, Bridget. Rick Moore.
Don't look like a Bridget.
This is the man who's wearing his underwear.
I need to see.
Good. They were good underwear.
Well, and
Just put them
I'd like one last card here. We have a birthday boy up here, the mayor, Dr. Zelinski. Happy
Oh,
birthday,
well,
Mayor.
yes.
Right.
Oh, yeah. 35 this year.
Where's the cake?
35. If there's nothing else, I need a motion to adjourn.
Got it.
Mr. Goodspeed made the motion. We're adjourned.